Football with friends is fun as hell. My name is Alex Dunlap, man. So happy to be with you guys here on a Wednesday, a big Wednesday, a hump day. I was talking to my kids earlier. Yeah, we got the Rogue Chop, we got Text Guy 2, Cody Carpentier, everybody showing up in the chat. How are you guys on this big hump day? Third quarter equals championship football for 8 minutes. Well, we'll see. Let's just evaluate the third quarter and feel better about UT. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting day today. So the grades are in on the offense. I got done with the deep dig. A little bit kind of a different time frame this week than I'm used to, just because I've unbeknownst to me, I have this new 2-hour show that's been injected into the middle of my day, and of course I love it. Of course I'm blessed to have it, blessed to have such a great audience here on Football with Friends. But it's kind of it's been interesting, kind of reconfiguring the schedule to make sure that I'm not just kind of halfway done. Money B just says Alex. Money B. Jeff Bowerman watching from Denton, Texas. Love the new show. Hey, Jeff Bowerman. I love Denton, Texas. Downtown Denton, Texas. One of my best friends from high school went to UNT, and so I used to love to go visit him up there in Denton. Jareth Mulholland in the chat. How are you doing, sir? Great to see everybody. We have a bunch to get to today. So like we talked about the offense, right? I'm done with it. We're gonna get to it. There's obviously some good things. There were some really bad things too, and we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about the offensive line. We'll talk about the skill guys. We'll talk about the tight ends. We'll look over the personnel groupings, kind of how that changed, the OL, sort of how it looks versus previous president. There's good news there. There's also some very concerning news there. We got the matchup tool up at Roster Watch. We thought we'd talk about it yesterday. We just didn't have the time. I had a fantasy draft in Ketchum's league yesterday, and I didn't love the way that my team turned out. I did love that Yahoo gave me a D, because every team that I've done on Yahoo this year, they continue giving me horrible grades.
Is it a terrible sign that Yahoo gave me an A+ for that draft?
Yes, you're completely screwed, man. You're completely screwed.
Okay, I'll keep that.
So we might get to that. There's this story kind of floating around the internet. It seems to be going a little bit viral about Matthew Stafford's wife. She went on a podcast recently, talked about how he's having some trouble connecting with younger millennials. So we're going to talk about that. I don't know if it's the phones or what it is. So I just saw that come across the news feed today and thought we had to get to that. My kids told me that because I've been doing the deep dig all day, right? And I go to pick up my kids, and we go to the we go to the school, and I go to the pickup line, and I pick them up, and I drive them home. They're like, "What are you going to talk about today?" And I'm like, "Dude, I've been, last night I was up late working on the deep dig. I've been working on it all day today. I literally just finished it. The charts aren't even made, but I have the data. So I guess I'm just going to go on YouTube and look at the data and try and figure things out along with everybody." And I said, "But I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I kind of never do." And my daughter said, "Well, you should just call it Wacky Wednesday." And so I said, "Well, hey, Wacky Wednesday. I like it." But I kind of told her, kind of every day is a little bit wacky around here. We have, I got a couple emails from you guys with some questions. So I'm going to try to get to those. And also, just a quick reminder here at the top, we need sponsors. Football with Friends needs sponsors. So please, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, email me, alex@rosterwatch.com. I'd love to get you that information. Great opportunity to sponsor a great, fun show. Jeff Bowerman got a D- from Yahoo on this fantasy draft as well. You'll be good. Barkley and Diggs at 12-13. Then reach for Andrews and Fields in round 3 and 4. Well, who knows? It could go big. Have you guys seen the cut up going around of all of Justin Fields' for the quarterback for the Chicago Bears? All of his throws from preseason. He still isn't. People are like, "Oh, of course he's going to make the look. He's bound to make the same leap as Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen." It's just like, well, might be another year or so on that. Who knows? I could be wrong. There was nobody in the NFL that last year that made me just stand up on my couch at times and point at the TV and say, "You can't stop him," more than Justin Fields, the way that he was able to use his legs. So that, for fantasy, that's kind of what we care a whole lot about. All right. Oh yeah, and then the theme today, right here, best movies. You guys have any favorite movies that you want to talk about? I'm not. I'm not. I'm not big into movies. I probably haven't been to a movie theater in like a decade. I don't think. When was the last time? Not even to go see I don't even take my kids to see these movies these days. I think a lot of them are trash. But if you guys have your favorite movies, you can throw in there Goodfellas. That's a good suggestion. And Money Beast says Coming to America. Well, of course, I knew on here. These are my people. That's a Casablanca. That's a little bit. Is that a good movie? I think it won every award, didn't it? Inception, very good. It gets me a little bit. It gets me a little bit. Certainly gets me a bit confused. Napoleon Dynamite. That's a very good movie. I'll share whenever Blake comes on later. I'll share the definitive list of the actual of the best movies. Oscar Lopez says Master and Commander. What's up to all you guys? Blake Winfrey, Oscar Lopez, Corleone Burgess says Dune. I've read that book. Jareth Mulholland, Pulp Fiction. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you guys are stealing all the best one. Text Guy 2 says Casablanca, the best dialogue ever. And very, 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 very interesting list here. We're going to keep this list. We'll keep it running. Blake will bring it back up when we talk more about movies. But I can tell you guys want to talk about the offense. So let's just talk about what does Marcellus Wallace look like? I mean, isn't Marcellus Wallace the guy who you open up the box and isn't that him?
He's quoting the movie.
Yeah. Okay.
What does Marcellus Wallace look like? Does he look like a bee?
Oh, right. Yes, Samuel L. Jackson. All right. Okay. All right. Anyway, so yeah, a bunch of great suggestions there. Here we go. Let's look at the deep dig. So let's take a poll from the audience first. Do you guys, do all my friends in the chat and the text chat line, do you guys want the good news first or the bad news first about the offensive line? First one that answers is going to that's where we get started. Good news or bad news? I'm going to need to get it from one of you guys because I don't know where to start. So do you want the good news or do you want the bad news? Okay, Jeff Bowerman says he wants the bad news first. It's going to be a tough talk. Yes, it's going to be a tough talk day. Okay, sometimes we're gonna have to have tough talks. I'm here to shoot you guys straight. I'm not here to just tell you everything that everybody wants to hear, everything I would love to hear. I want to cover a team this year that draws attention and draws eyes from people, and that my family can be excited about, and that my friends can be excited about, and people will be interested in the team, so they'll come watch shows like these, and they'll I really, these are the things that I want. So anybody saying that I'm only saying these things because I'm interested in bringing some attention to myself or what I talk about or like that, like you can get out of here with that. That's not it. I would love to be here and tell you that everything was just perfectly fine with the offensive line. I'd love to tell you that I think it was only kind of bad. But the bad news is that your worries about the interior offensive line and your consternation over it and the way that you've been thinking about it, it's worse. And it's not just worse. It's way worse. It's way worse. And I'm sorry to tell you, it just is, doing this 13 years, I can tell you just versus history, it was a historically bad performance from the offensive line and it was versus Rice. And that's the thing that really makes this whole thing hit home is that it was versus Rice. as Money B saying, hit that like button, folks, as I'm giving you the worst news possible. But definitely hit the like button, right? Come on. I mean, we're definitely here to have fun, but certainly I don't say that enough. You guys need to like and subscribe, but you don't need to. You do you do what you want, man. You're here watching the show. We're here hanging out. Yeah, I'm never going to tell you what to do, what to think, or I'm here to present some information to you. But like, so I'm not telling you have to, but please, man, like, a ton of people watch these shows, maybe probably what 1/20th of the people who watch these shows click the like button. It's real easy. The interior of the offensive line was miserable. DJ Campbell looks like he hasn't progressed one centimeter, and he's probably gotten worse. Jake Majors he's probably never going to be any good. Hayden Connor, we talked about it yesterday. He's like the Benjamin Button of football. He just, every time he gets worse. And if we can, and I'm going to give you the numbers to just kind of back this up, but that's the fact of the matter is that this was so bad that it rivals anything I ever saw from, bad play from offensive tackles in the past, like Marcus Hutchins, or, hate to say it, but like some games from guys like Tristan Nicholson, some of these where it would be whiff after whiff after whiff after whiff, and giving up 6 quarterback pressures in a game and stuff like that. It certainly rivals that. So let's go through and let's talk about the interior of the offensive line, because after that we can talk about the good news, and let me tell you the good news, right? Like let's hear some good news. The offensive tackles are great. Kelvin Banks played a bad Kelvin Banks game, but it was like there's zero worry about him. He's still great, right? Christian Jones is much better this year than he was last year. He's a pleasant surprise. He played awesome. He played the best game of anybody on the whole offensive line. He played at a level where he's like, if he plays like this the whole year, and granted it was versus Rice, but and Christian Jones had a lot more evaluation reps than these guys in the interior, right? So even with more evaluation reps, he took the opportunity. He stepped up. Kelvin Banks did the same. Kelvin Banks gave up one. Look, we'll talk about Banks and we'll talk about Christian Jones. I want to tell you that there's good news coming up, right? There's good news about Quinn Ewers coming up. I'm not concerned about that. I'm not concerned about Quinn Ewers. I'm not concerned about his deep ball. I'm not concerned about the placement. We're going to talk about all that stuff. I'm not concerned at all with the wide receivers, tight ends. We're going to talk about the alignment data with those guys. We'll talk about the target share data with those guys, with the running backs. Pleased with the running backs. So there's good news coming. So let's just get this done. And look, Jay Wall 321. I'm not dropping Tristan Nicholson comparisons to multiple people on the line. I'm saying as soon as I present you this data from this one game that should have been a layup for everybody involved, especially, man, coming out of you're gonna see that they played at a level that. The reason I do the deep dig is so I can compare performances. I can talk about these things intelligently. I've graded them with the same system now for 13 years, and I wasn't expecting it to be this bad. And that's a lot of credit goes to Quinn Ewers. A lot of credit goes to the running backs. The tight ends did their fair share of allowing some pressure and stuff. Not every time pressure got to Quinn was it the fault of the offensive line. Heck, one time, like A.D. Mitchell was responsible for 1 tackle for loss, maybe 2 if you consider the one on the stock block. And they focus offensive line. Let's just talk about it. So, all right, on the interior of the offensive line, we're going to talk about these guys first. And okay, but in order for you to understand what these grades mean, let me just sort of talk about what the grading scale looks like and what these grades mean whenever I grade these players in the deep dig, and then what that means also when you compare it to snaps per disruption allowed. Okay. And what snaps per disruption allowed, what that does is it takes snaps, right? And the snap numbers that I'm talking about, if you look at maybe some other sources like PFF, things like that, you're going to see that the number of snaps that I have on these players is always going to be a little bit different because PFF, they seem to grade snaps of plays that are blown dead due to penalty. I don't do that. I don't grade snaps where it's like a victory formation. I don't grade snaps where the ball gets spiked. I don't consider like punts or field goals or extra points or any of that stuff offensive snaps the guys might play on. So it's going to be a little bit different. So that's the first caveat. But this is work that I do that I go back and I double check. So you take those snaps, right? And when you grade each snap, there's an outcome. There's really two separate outcomes that are associated with each snap for these offensive line in the methodology that I use. One is I'm first give them a grade, and those grades go on a snap by snap basis. Each snap gets graded. We've explained it before, but for people who haven't heard, it's a pretty simple thing that you do. You look at what the offensive line is doing, and you can look at what the running back's doing, and you can identify a run concept. Basically, you can package these run concepts into 4 different buckets, and it's pretty simple. The run concepts that you can put into the buckets, right? Let me make sure that I have it right. So the run block concept key. So if it's an inside zone run, which is just your traditional inside zone, but there can be some other things. You can run like a zone slice off of that, a split zone. You guys have seen it a million times where the offensive line takes their zone angles like this, but the offset tight end back here that's at an H back, he goes the other way and he takes the defensive end that was left unblocked by the tackle that came inside of him, right? A zone read, just all those are inside zone concepts for the most part. You can also do like a zone read RPO stuff outside zone, but you get what I'm saying. So 2 is just man gap football, power football, right? And that can be leads, it can be traps, it can be counters, it can be pulls. There's all kinds of just all kinds of different man concepts. Then there's outside zone. So that's the third bucket, right? Outside zone is outside zone, wide zone, sweeps, speed options, pin and pull, those kinds of things. And then 4 is just other, because sometimes, and that's generally with Texas, that's generally just like quarterback draws, right? That's kind of the only thing that they do, the draw concepts, that's different from the rest. So you identify which concept it is, you label the snap with the concept, and then you grade each player along the offensive line for what their assignment is. Because once you know the concept and once you establish what the defensive front looks like, just like the offensive lineman does, what their assignment is. And then do they execute it? And if they execute it, do they execute it with some dominance? Do they kind of do a bad job? Do they loaf a little bit? Was it good? Was it fine? Was it just like perfectly baseline? Did you even get an evaluation of it for anything? Maybe he was uncovered in the run game and he just, there was no one for him to ever really touch, except maybe just give a little bit of 3-hand technique here on the backside. And it's like, well, that snap was fine, right? So you give him a 0, and the scale goes from -2, -1.5, -1, -0.5, 0, +0.5, +1, +1.5, +2. +2 means, oh my God, it must have been an alien from outside of the realm of the universe that just did that, because I've never seen anybody make a block that great. I think Kelvin Banks last year, for reference, had like 2 snaps that I graded as 2s. So it's not, it's basically whenever you get to like a 1.5, that's just like, holy cow, this guy looks like a first round NFL draft talent. The same goes for like -2. And then the scales kind of goes down to 1, down to 0.5. And so basically I have this sheet, and I wish I could share the sheet with you, but it's just like, how many plays it was 72 total offensive snaps that I've graded. And it's just like a row of 5 lines, and it says like 0, 0, 0.5, -0.5, blah, blah. But then next to it, there's a little thing called outcome. And in the outcome, that's where we get the snaps per disruption allowed, because the disruption that I chart is, once you identify what the responsibility is, then what you can do is you can say, okay, now was his execution of that play and his ability to take care of his responsibility, did that cause an outcome that led to disruption? right? Sometimes people will do a bad job on a snap, and it won't even, it'll just be like, it'll be like if a tree falls in the woods, but no one's there to hear it. Did it even ever really occur? Well, like on the deep dig, it actually did occur. I know nothing bad happened out of that, but you still had a bad snap, right? It's like the time that you made a bad decision after you know, maybe you went to the bar and maybe you might have had too many drinks and you felt unsafe to drive, but you drove home anyway and you didn't get caught. But I mean, you still did something kind of bad, right? So like the deep dig, like the deep dig takes into account those things, but it certainly also takes into account the actual outcome, right? The actual thing that did happen. Most of the time it's nothing. Sometimes it's something good, like a pin block. You get extra points for those. A pin block is different than a knockdown because with a pin block, what you do is you take a man, you get him you get him up under his chest plate, and you actually put him on his back, and you completely demoralizingly to him fall on top of him and pin him to the ground, and that's a pin, right? That's the ultimate thing. Um, Kelvin Banks had an incredible pin block right on the play, right after he had allowed a sack, a completely uncharacteristic sack. He came right back and made a big open field pin block, and I was just like, man, I just saw the worst and the best of Kelvin Banks in two straight plays. There's also knockdowns, right? A knockdown could be an outcome. That's also a great outcome that gets you extra points in the system, right? Because you get to your responsibility and you don't only get the guy blocked, but you knock him down and you put him on the ground, right? That's a good outcome. Now, what are the bad outcomes, right? The ones that allow disruption to occur to the offense. And those forms of disruption, if you've never seen the deep dig before, are sacks allowed, quarterback hits allowed, quarterback pressures allowed, run stuff's allowed. We've talked a million times about run stuffs. You guys know what it is by now, right? It's not a run stuff on defense is just something where you don't make the tackle, but you fit up your gap so well that when the runner gets there and it's his assignment, the play's busted. Like he stops all momentum. He's got to create on his own. The play's busted, and you won't get any credit for that as a defensive player. And as an offensive player, maybe you won't get blamed for it because it's not like you allowed him to get a TFL, but you did allow the fact that now your running back, he's going to have to stop, and this whole thing's kind of getting created for him. Or this whole thing he's going to have to create for himself. The whole thing that you created for him is now busted to smithereens because you allowed this play to be stuffed. You allowed that runner to get stuffed. And there's also, TFLs. That's easy to, if the play results in a TFL, that's an outcome. There's also the penalties. Okay. And so when we look at the deep dig grade, the grade is one thing because that's the grade for the actual plays, right? And sometimes you can have a pretty good grade while allowing a decent amount of disruption. Take, for example, Cam Williams in the spring game this year. And look, this is all a preamble so you guys can understand what I'm about to tell you and understand the seriousness of what it is that I'm about to sort of share with you and why I'm concerned. The actual grade is the culmination of in this case, say, what did the starters play? 62 snaps. The offensive starters, I graded 62 snaps for them, except for DJ Campbell. He got hurt right at the very end. Actually, he got hurt on a Kelvin Banks knockdown, by the way. That was how that happened. But he played 56 snaps, whatever. But let's just say 62. It's the culmination of all of those grades, right? And then I'll get like a sum of those grades at the very end. Those grades go into a formula. And once that formula once it pops out the letter grade, right? So not the letter grade, but like the number grade. I tried to design it to where it felt kind of like a grade you would get on a test or something like that. Like, and so what is baseline for that? Like it's fine, it's fine. That's a 75. Okay. And to understand sort of how these grades fall, basically anything south of like 75 is fine, right? It's baseline. Basically everything down to like 74.5, 74, you're starting to teeter on the edge of acceptability, right? anything under 74.25, something like that, like anything in the 73s, 72s. I mean, there have been deep dig grades for certain games. They go, I think there's been one, maybe like a 69 one time. Anything under 74.5 to 74.25 is unacceptable. 75, all that is it basically considered the threshold of acceptability. But I've realized over the years that since I invented this system to grade college athletes that are going to the NFL, it's a little bit of a different athlete than just the average. You always have maybe one or two guys playing for Texas. They're going to have shots at the NFL. You're probably getting, at least during the course of the time that I've been doing this, and the numbers from the guys that have been sent to the league versus the numbers I've given them in the deep dig go to show this. 3-4 of these guys on the offensive line, they're probably not going to go play in the NFL. So the scale wasn't quite right, So that's why I said 75 is the threshold. But for this kind of procedure, that's why I'm kind of giving you the nuance. Like 74.5 is kind of about what it's been historically, where you say, okay, that's teetering on the edge of acceptability. Anything below that, it's like that's an unacceptable overall performance. The way it goes from there, up from 75, when you get to the to, let's say, from 76 to about 79. Yeah, I'll just read it to you. Like here's the key. So games in this area represent good to very good Division I play, and teams with an entire offensive line operating in this area over the course of a game should experience no detriment to offensive game plan due to the offensive line. So that's good, right? Games in this area present good to very good Division I play. It's like you're a good Division I player if your game if you rate, or you played a good game for a D1 player at a school like Texas, if your deep dig grade in the game is like a 76 to a 79. You start getting like a 79.5 to maybe an 80.5, you're probably, and you just play like 3 of those games in a season, right? You're probably an NFL prospect if you get there. So say 80.5 to 84. Players who have games in this area, and again, it doesn't have to be every game. Not everybody's going to play at a level like this every game, but if you get to games at that level, right, maybe a few games, and especially versus good opponents, right? So players who have games in this area are going to be drafted almost always, and some will be drafted highly, depending on physical attributes, measurables, character, combine results, etc. Some will grade out in this area on film as simply outstanding college players, while NFL interest might not necessarily be there as much as with others due to lack of concrete measurable attributes. So that's saying, take like Parker Braun, right? A guy that was at Texas, I don't know, 3 years ago, something like that. He came out, I forgot if he was a graduate transfer out of Georgia Tech. Very, very, very undersized. But he had some of these games where he wouldn't pop into the 81, 81.5, but he'd pop sometimes up into the 80s. Good college player, right? Good college player. He was never going to be in the NFL because he's not going to get the interest, because he didn't have the concrete measurable attributes. And then you get up above like 85, anything from 85 to 90. Players who have games in that range, they are virtually assured of being drafted very highly. Games in that range, 85 to 90, are games that I've graded for guys like Joel Bitonio when he was coming out, like Jake Matthews, Zach Martin, Larry Warford. I don't know if he's still in the league. I'm trying to think you get the idea, right? These just complete war daddies. You put on the film, and it's like it's a free for all, right? And so now that we've explained sort of what the grading system is and what it means when we talk about snaps per disruption allowed, we're going to present the grades and the snaps per disruption allowed from this one game versus Rice. And we're going to compare that to recent history as far as over the last decade or so. And we're going to find ourselves in a spot where we're going to need to have a little bit of a tough talk about figuring out what exactly it is that we think Texas should do before we get to some really good news, some lighter news. And I'm really looking forward to getting to that. We're going to do it next.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback takes a look at arguably the most high-profile recruitment in the history of the Texas football program. at least until Arch Manning came along. Yes, I'm talking about former Texas quarterback Chris Sims, who was the nation's #1 ranked prospect when he came out of New Jersey in 1999. Sims took a look around all over the nation early in his recruitment, visiting the likes of Ohio State and Penn State, before eventually setting on his top two. The two UTs, Texas and Tennessee, were his two finalists. After taking an official visit to Austin in the fall of 1998, the Longhorns appeared to be poised to land Sims, which partly helped steer Eli Manning, who also visited Texas in the fall of 1998, to Ole Miss. Yet, when Sims announced his decision on December 15th on the MSG network, he picked the Vols over the Longhorns. Mack Brown later admitted that the Texas coaching staff was shocked by the news. Quote, "I'm proud to be a Vol, and it's a good place for me," Sims said upon his announcement. "I'm a big fan of Coach Fulmer, and I think it fits me right. I feel so relieved, and I can finally get back to being a high schooler and enjoying myself." Yet, the truth of the matter is that Sims wasn't really relieved about the decision, and word got around quickly that he was wavering on his commitment to the Vols almost as soon as he made the announcement. I can remember talking to a Texas source on January 1st of 1999, just before the Longhorns played Mississippi State in the Cotton Bowl, that the Longhorns were going to flip Sims away from Tennessee. A few days following the New Year's Bowl game, Sims called Texas assistant coach Tim Brewster to tell him that he was having second thoughts. Less than 3 weeks later, Sims sat down with his parents, Diana and Phil, you might have heard of him, to reevaluate the decision. The next day, he called Tennessee head coach Phil Fulmer to deliver the news. Sims said, quote, "The hardest thing I ever did in my life. The first thing he said to me was, 'Chris, I'm down here in Alabama recruiting you the best receiver in the country,' end quote." One day later, Sims made things official by flipping his commitment to the Longhorns, which helped cement a #1 overall recruiting class for Brown and his coaching staff. It proved to be a game changer for the Longhorns, as evidenced by the commitment of the big three wide receivers in the following recruiting class: B.J. Johnson, Roy Williams, and Sloan Thomas, as well as paving the way for Cedric Benson's commitment to the Longhorns in the 2001 recruiting class. Ultimately, it was one of the great recruiting moments in the history of the Texas football program.
All right, welcome back. It's Football with Friends. It's fun as hell. You know what else is fun as hell is when Blake tells me we're gonna go to a Specs commercial coming out of that thing, and we don't go to Blake. Throw to the Specs commercial. What are we doing, man? You're throwing.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All right, there we go. That's more like it. The Specs commercial, because you know what? Forget it. I don't even need to look at these copy points. I can tell you by now, Specs has been around since 1962. Family owned, a 4-time National Retailer of the Year, a whole stadium full of savings at Specs. I'll tell you my favorite thing about Specs. We're going to be getting together with some friends this weekend. I'm going to cook a brisket on my neighbor's big green egg because I'm scared to cook out. Like I have a big outdoor stone fire pit. I'm scared to cook on it right now. Why would I want to start up a fire here in the beautiful hill country? So we're going to be using the big green egg, getting the brisket going. And you know what I'm looking forward to is getting over to Specs, seeing my wine guy over there. I'm asking him, hey man, what wine here pairs best with a brisket for any ladies that would like to have some wine with their brisket? I know where I'm going. I'm going to go find the tequila section to get some delicious Hornitos, some Casamigos if I'm feeling super, super, super fancy. And for the Alabama game, I might be feeling super fancy right over there at Specs. So go check them out. Here's to you. Here's to savings. Like I always say to my children, here's to you. Here's to savings. So they're going to look back and say, I remember my dad when I was a little kid, he'd put me on his lap. He'd say, son, here's to you and here's to savings. Shop Specs. Low price, amazing. Snappy. All right. And I'm going to need the tequila because we have the offensive line that we need to get to. So you guys are saying like, look, Tell me the grades. Tell me the grades. And I'm just saying, I think that some of you guys saying, tell me the grades, tell me the grades. You're probably Orangebloods subscribers. All you guys should be Orangebloods subscribers. You understand what the grades are. You're like, what did they get? Did they, I wanted to explain it so people would know. Okay. And moving forward, I won't have to explain it as much. But here we go. So let's start with Hayden Connor. He played 67 snaps. On those 67 snaps, he allowed 4 run stuffs. He had 1 face mask penalty. His deep dig grade was a 73.96, completely unacceptable. A 73.96. His snaps per disruption allowed in this game for Hayden Connor was he allowed disruption and or committed a penalty once every 13.4 snaps. We're going to talk about how the disruption allowed in this game versus Rice, mind you, versus sometimes Rice bringing 3. It's crushing. It's soul crushing to say. I know it must be soul crushing to hear. I'm not enjoying doing this, but sometimes against 3 and 4 man fronts where they didn't even bring that many guys. Let's just look and see. So a 73. What did I say it was? It doesn't. It's trash. It's a terrible grade. What did I say it was though? 73 point something, 73.96. I'll bet you it's worse than any grade that he had last year. So let's look at Hayden Connor's grades from all last season. 2022 deep dig. And you guys will have to excuse me for not having this stuff ready. Like I said, man, this is just like I didn't even have time to I had to change clothes, get ready. Like I was throwing a hat. Like literally, I got done with a deep dig. So I'm exploring this stuff as I'm talking with you guys. I haven't written my column. I've done nothing. Right? You guys are getting the first sort of peek here. Last year, Hayden Connor, his average game on the season was a 76.99. His medium game was a 76.8. He started out last year in his cupcake game versus ULM. He scored an 80.32, his best game of the season. A 77.42 versus Bama, a 75.7 versus Tech, a 75.64 versus West Virginia, still nothing like a 73.96. A 78.33 versus, a 78.47 versus OU, a 76.32, one of his worst games versus Iowa State, a 77.28 versus Oklahoma State, a 76.19, one of his worst games. And then Hayden Connor faded down the stretch last year. Kansas State, 76.19. TCU, okay, 77.37. Kansas, 76.03. Baylor, 74.84. That was his worst game of all last season. What do I have grades on Hayden Connor from 2021? Was this his worst game ever? Yep, it was his worst game ever. He got a 76.2 versus Rice in 2021, a 75 versus Kansas State. Those are the 2 games. You have to play at least 20 snaps for the deep dig formula to work. So he only qualified twice in that season, and he averaged a 75.6, a 75, and a 76.2. So Hayden Connor, worst game of his career, allowing disruption once every 13.4 snaps. If we compare that to historical precedent, that would place him out of 68 qualifying. Is this 68? Yep, 68 qualifying players that I've done over the course of the last 13 years that have played at least 100 snaps during a season for Texas. His snaps per disruption allowed, if it were extrapolated out over the course of the season, would be 4th worst of all time. Underneath him would be a couple Tristan Nicholson seasons, his junior and senior seasons of 450 snaps, 203 snaps. Cameron Hughes, his sophomore season of 437 snaps. Those numbers were 12.9 and 12.7 respectively. 12.9, 12.9, 12.7. He would be just under Andre Carrick, not this last year, but the year before when he was a redshirt freshman on 263 snaps, allowed disruption once every 15.5. Far below even guys like, Terrell Cuny was at 17.8. The bad version of Kent Perkins was at like 18.3. Got guys like Elijah Rodriguez and Marcus Hutchins looks like superstars on this stuff. And their junior, and Elijah Rodriguez is a sophomore. He was at 20.2. Marcus Hutchins allowed disruption once every 20.4 snaps as a junior when they had to start him that year at a bunch of left tackle. And you remember that. That guy had a kick slide like a robot. We're talking 13.4. Like I said, man, it's a tough talk. We got some good news coming, and I think there's some solutions here that we can present. Okay. But it's tough. It's just tough. Okay. I'm here to present the data. Jake Majors played 67 snaps. He didn't allow quite the disruption. He allowed 2 run stuffs, 1 quarterback hit. He did generate 1 knockdown. He also had a false start penalty after completely berating DJ Campbell earlier in the game for getting a false start penalty of his own. His grade in the deep dig was a 73.81. So once again, completely unacceptable. Let me see if it was the worst game that he's ever played. So 2022, Jake Majors, ULM, he had a 77.43. So it would have been his worst game of last season. 75 versus Bama, 75.7 versus UTSA, a 76.45 versus Tech, 77 versus West Virginia. What is the worst game anybody played last year? Maybe that's the good way to look at this thing. What's the worst? What is the go by this sort? Look at men. 73.55 was the worst game anybody played last year. That was Cole Hudson and a loss versus Tech where he played miserably. Only 1 game last year out of 1 player in the whole year. What about 2021? Go to here and sort by men. Who had this? Oh, my God. Well, Denzel Okafor had a couple. Oh, he had a couple doozies to start that year. It looks like before he ended up losing a job. He had a 71.25 in that Hudson Card game versus Arkansas. Yikes. So, yeah, it's about like that. But two of these guys, Hayden Connor, Jake Majors, the snaps per disruption allowed is sitting at 16.75. If we go to the old historical comparison here, we look at the data, that would put him not as the 4th worst of all time since the beginning of the deep dig among 68 other qualifiers. And remember, how about a small ray of sunshine here? A small one? You don't get on this list until you get to 100 snaps, right? So they have a good 38 snaps to turn this thing around. But if they were eligible to get on this list at 62 snaps, he would be 5th worst out of 68 in snaps per disruption allowed. And certainly as far as just his worst game, it was worse than any game. His worst game in 2022 was a 74.84. So a full point worse than, that's an acceptable game. That's right there in that kind of teetering on the edge of acceptability between the 75 and 74.5 that we talked about earlier. His worst game of 2021 men. Yeah, Arkansas, it was worse. He had a 72.5 in that game. So we remember what happened in that game, right? It makes this all makes sense. This feels like, but it doesn't make sense because it's Rice, and Arkansas in that game was bringing all you remember, old boy, man, that old coach of theirs. What's his name? Bringing all kinds of exotic stuff. There wasn't too much exotic stuff. There wasn't that much exotic stuff that Rice was bringing. With Jake Majors, what his problem is he's getting overextended. He's getting out over the balls of his feet too much. He's falling on the ground too much. And I think what it is he's just so concerned about making sure that he's getting some push. He's generating some push off the ball. Imagine you've felt this way before, whether it's in sports or whether it's at work or whether it's been like maybe in a relationship. If you're trying to like date a guy or a girl or something like that, you can get there are things that can happen to you where you get you start looking over your shoulder, you start looking around, you don't feel as secure with where you are, and you might start doing things that are outside of what you've been taught or outside of what you know is right to just try and stay ahead of things. And you just see the way that the worm is turning here with all these bigger players, these young players are being recruited. That Jake Majors is probably saying, golly, they look differently than me. And yes, they call me the football cyborg. And yes, I know I'm the one that they trust to be able to get the calls and to assign the mic and to set the zero for the zone run calls, right? But I need to get pushed off the football. These guys are now starting to think about the SEC. I'm like looking up, I'm like, here's Cam Williams, and here's like Connor Stroh, and here's like, Kojo and Kirkland. And you're just like, whoa, I got to get better push. And so what he's doing is he's coiling himself up, and he's let. In doing so, I guess this is the best way to say it. Picture it like if you're cooling yourself up and you're foregoing the balance, right? You're foregoing your balance set where your body weight is your center of gravity, right? It's not in an athletic place like it should be when it's over the balls of your feet. When you get out over, but that's what's called getting overextended. You're extending your body and getting your center of gravity out over the balls of your feet. What happens when you do that? Well, you lose your balance. And the only way that he can't lose his balance is if he hits the target right in the square between the numbers with the crown of his helmet. And when he does that, I think he's getting a little bit better movement off the football. What it results in, though, is if any guy gives him the slightest bit of a counter or hand move or anything like this, swim over, swat, swim, all this, he goes forward and he falls over. He's really trying, but he's having a tough time. And there were just some things like that happened like that really screwed up plays. All right, here's for the last part, and this might be the hardest part for me, is DJ Campbell. And I saw, before we get to DJ Campbell, so I see that somebody put in a super chat. Blake, can we get to that? I saw it just pop up here out of the corner of my eye. I don't want to miss them. Let me just, I'm in the deep dig right now, but I tried to set it because I accidentally missed a super chat yesterday and I want to do it again. So I tried to put the chat in the corner of my eye. Oh, all right. So here it is. Super chat, college football raw. Okay, so I saw a rep at 9:38 in the first quarter and 5-man pass pro and empty set, 4 rushers and an MMO. So okay, I don't know where 9:38 in the first quarter would have. Do you know what series it was? I can on a delayed blitz. Banks let the edge. Where Banks let him go. Yeah, and the entire offense slides right. So the one, if it's the play where Kelvin Banks gave up the sack, is that what you're saying? Yeah. He thought he had help, and he should have known that he didn't have the help. Hayden Connor had already turned. Hayden had already turned his guy. Hayden Connor had already. So Banks is so if your Banks right here, right? You feel like you got Connor here. You got to know if he's not hip to hip with you. You got to know that he's turned this way to go give help over there to Majors, and just the guy goes. Banks just stands there. He doesn't. Banks doesn't. Yes, he was passing him on to Connor for sure. But what Banks should have what he should have foreseen is that, for one, there were no other threats. There was nobody coming. It was completely free and clear. You could see him after that whenever Quinn's getting sacked, where he's just standing there shuffling his feet, looking upfield. There's nobody within 10 yards of him. But sometimes you can be worried about, okay, so you're not talking about that. So I'm talking about the wrong play. So I don't know the exact play that you're talking about. But yeah, the one where, so if there was a quarterback, so there's a quarterback hit. Okay, so I mean, I'll go look and see. I'd have to go back and look at this. So I'll go back to the 2023 deep dig. Go to the offensive line grade log. A hit that would have occurred right around then. The only hit that I've well. There's a hit. Yeah. Oh, wait. Sorry. I got to. Sorry, man. It's live YouTube. Hold on. So I gotta. do like this. There's a hit. There's one that comes from DJ Campbell in the third series. I would have to see the play, but if you're saying that you thought it came from Banks on that play, then I'll go back and watch maybe during a break or something like that. But I wish I had it by the time left in the quarters and stuff. I can't find where I credited a hit. I credited a pressure maybe sometime around there, but that's on the other side of the line. Could it have been the one with where JT Sanders allowed it? Because JT Sanders did allow one hit in this game, and he could have been over there. I'm sorry, I can't give you the best answer. If you told me the series, maybe I could look. Super chat, $10. Did you see what Aaron Murray said about Quinn Ewers? Thought his game against Rice, other than the deep balls, was elite anticipation and timing. Picks Texas to win. I'm not going to pick Texas to win with this offensive line stuff, but I'm not worried about Quinn. Tom G. Like I told you last night, I called Tom G up on the phone because I missed his super chat and I felt so bad about it. And I think Quinn's gonna be fine when he gets into a better groove. Whenever the progressions of not the progressions of the actual play, but the progressions of the drive start to set up more for that deep ball. Whenever they do get the RPO game going, whenever like you see it with that kind of that outside with the RPO stuff on the little crosser over, or maybe not a cross, like a slant, kind of quick slant over the middle to Jordan Whittington, right? With that they had they had it attached to the Brooks pin and pull stuff right there, where he could have thrown it to Brooks like he did on the touchdown, right? But he could have also handed it to Brooks, or he could pull it, throw it to Whittington. Like whenever you have all that stuff that you have to have the safety thinking about, they start to creep down a little bit, and that just opens things up for more of these deep balls. I think he's going to have a lot better, lot better shot there with it. Second offensive series, second play, ball on the. Okay, so I'll look at it here at the break. Okay. Cody saying it might have been Gunnar Helm releasing. I don't know. There was a tight end. I mean, there was a tight. I'm sorry. I just like it's kind of like if it was that early in the game, I did that yesterday, so it's not quite as front of mind as what the rest of the stuff today was. Banks allowed a sack. I mean, we can talk about it here shortly. I mean, he didn't play a perfect game, but certainly it's not like it's not like here with the interior of the offensive line. Okay, so is that the super chats? And Tom G, like I told you last night, I agree with you. I'm not sure I would say Quinn looked elite, but after watching him back, I am in agreement with you that if they can matriculate the offense in ways like they were there in the third quarter, and they can get things going with some of those higher percentage routes attached to some of this stuff that gets the safeties creeping down, right, from the offensive line, it's gonna open more things up for the downfield throws, and then you can take those shots. I just felt like it was during the Rice game, at least to start, it was just like he was just. Sark's probably just like the rest of us, saying like, all right, you got Xavier Worthy here. He's going to be our all-star. When we talk about the target shares, you guys will see. I mean, he's like a 29% target share guy, which is just an elite monster as far as his target share, right? They want to give him the football, and I think that you just get into that game, you're like, it's Rice, dude. Let's just show off the Lamborghini. Let's show this thing off. Let's get Quinn some confidence in this connection. Like they missed this connection before, like last year. You know, let's get this thing going. Let's get the fans pumped up. Let's start this thing hot. We've seen it all practice, right? We've seen it. Feels like they just went to it a little bit early. It wasn't set up the way that you would like. Okay. And then, so here's the thing about DJ Campbell. So his grade, and it's like, once we get out of this segment, we're kind of, we'll be out of the bad news part. We'll talk about what we need to do or what we hope to see to fix this stuff. So DJ Campbell played 56 snaps. He allowed 1 sack, 1 quarterback pressure, 1 quarterback hit, 1 run stuff. He generated 1 knockdown. He had 1 false start penalty. His deep dig grade was an unacceptable 74.11. So all people are just like, was it DJ Campbell that was bad? Was it Hayden Connor that was bad? Was it Jake Majors that was bad? Like, whose fault was it? It's like it's everybody's fault. And that's the toughest part, because it's not as easy as putting in, oh, here's another thing that's kind of, let's just get it out. Well, like Nato Umeazolo played really badly, especially in pass blocking, better in run blocking. Even though I think he allowed to run stuff on just 15 snaps. Did he ever run stuff? Yep. He allowed to run stuff on 15 snaps, just there in mop-up duty. He played mainly with Malik Murphy, because the starters stayed in with Malik Murphy there for Malik's first series. But then he stayed in with the backups. He was in there with Quinn and those guys on the rest of the series where DJ Campbell got hurt. And then he played that one where the one stayed in with Malik, and then he played like 4 snaps or whatever it was with the backups as time ran out, or as on the last series. So he didn't play well either. At the very end of the game, after these Rice players who were no good were probably super winded. So and I don't trust PFF either. I don't trust it, but I was there kind of just checking the snap counts and everything like that. And as usual, I'm just like, why do they have more snap counts? It tilts me endlessly that they count like penalty snaps and all these other snaps. It's like, that's not offense. It's not offense when Ewers gets up to the ball and spikes it. How are you going to grade somebody's performance on that play on the offensive line? It doesn't make any sense to me. But I did check and see, and I was like, I wonder what they said about Neto. They gave him like a 15 or something like that. And I don't know how their system works, but they had a better grade for him as far as a run blocker. And that's kind of the same way that I saw it. So he was having trouble too. Regardless, with DJ Campbell, it's just, I don't know. I was thinking the whole time, I'm just like, before I saw the injury occur to him, during the actual game, I was out at the ranch. I have a crappy TV out there. It's in a little trailer, and it's direct TV, and it's like snowy, old TV, better than nothing. I mean, God, I love it. I would love to be out there right now. Get done with the show, go out, set up in the ground blind out by Clear Creek. God, I would love that. It sounds like a dream. But that's all to say that, it's really hard to pick up on the nuance and stuff like that you're so used to in this world we have of, all the HD TVs and the 1080p and 4K. But I was like, maybe like DJ Campbell, like he's playing so bad, maybe he's a little bit hurt, and maybe that's why he left the game. But then, once the play happened where he got hurt, I'm like, oh, no. He wasn't hurt before. It wasn't like this was a lingering thing. That was Kelvin Banks running some dude, rolling up on the back of his knee, right? Or on the back of, on the back side of his knee. And I don't know what it is. All I can say is this: whenever DJ Campbell is moving forward and he's moving somebody's body forward, he's an ox. He's super, super powerful. I don't understand how sub-athletes at Rice can drive him back off of the football. I simply don't get it. Whenever Quinn was having to kind of bail and the pocket was collapsing from the interior, a lot of times that was DJ Campbell just on a one-on-one assignment where he didn't understand his depth. He didn't understand it one bit. He was giving up so much ground moving backwards. And, to be an offensive lineman, you got to be as good moving forwards as you are moving backwards, as you are moving laterally, as you are moving, horizontally, or like at a 45-degree angle this way, or 45-degree angle this way, 45 this way, 45 this way. Man, it's eight different ways, right? And everything in between. and somehow he's not as strong when he's moving just backwards. He's getting pushed back. El Presidente saying NATO's bad as well. Look, I'm not saying that NATO is bad. I'm saying that. Oh, and then Cody's figuring this out. All right, so Cody's explaining it in the chat about how clear. Okay, so right, it was just a numbers advantage for Rice there. On the college football world super chat, I guess is what he's talking about. And for me, it was tough to see. It was toughest to see with DJ Campbell because he was the one that I was most sure. It's like, if Texas is going to take a step forward this year with the offensive line, of course they are. Man, they're getting DJ Campbell in here. As a recruit, it's almost embarrassing to say. I loved Kelvin Banks. I love DJ Campbell. But if I had to pick between the two back when he was a recruit, I would have picked DJ Campbell. And I saw them both live. Goes to show how hard scouting these guys are on the offensive line. It goes to show, man, it's hard. And I'm not saying that everything's over for DJ Campbell. It's certainly not. But he's got a lot more work to do. And the whole thing about Cole Hudson last year, starting over him the whole year, now that you've seen a game of him in this situation, we saw some full games last year, and we kind of blew off the disruption allowed because we're like, well, on his good plays, he's really good. And when he's moving bodies and he's got Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson running behind him, who are great at creating on their own anyway, and tacklers are just trying to somehow get off of this kind of smothering inside zone angle that DJ Campbell has them on, and they're contorting their bodies to do so or to try and get a hand on one of these tough runners, and next thing you know, DJ Campbell's pinning him into the ground, and you just maybe I got out over my skis and said, look, I've seen it. It's like the Alfred Collins thing from yesterday. I've seen it. If he could do it once, why can't he do it again? He simply still has things to work on. And now he's hurt. He's kind of banged up. And we have the Cole Hudson issue. We have the DJ Campbell issue. Let's look and just see what his snaps per disruption allowed number is and where he would fit in historically for this. So as far as his grades from last year, DJ Campbell graded out with a 76.74 when he came in for Cole Hudson versus Kansas and a 77.09 when he came in versus Baylor. His snaps per disruption allowed in 2022 on the season was not good. It wasn't good. It was bad. It was like down there with the Cole Hudsons of the world and stuff because, like I said, in between the great flashes, he allowed disruption. So last year, DJ Campbell, where's OL snaps per disruption 2022? Okay, so DJ Campbell, 101 snaps last year. I was always saying it's too many because he was second worst on the team with 18.36. So that has him on the historical list at basically out of 68 of these guys, it has him at the 10th worst at 18.4, rounded up from 18.36. He's sandwiched right in between Patrick Vahe's disappointing senior season and Kent Perkins' disappointing junior season. And now this year, so far in one game versus Rice, and it's just 56 snaps. It's just one game, right? We have to keep that in mind. But snaps per disruption allowed for 2023, he's sitting at once every 11.2 snaps, worst on the team. If I were to put that in the historical context, it would be the worst that I've ever seen. So that's the bad news. The good news is, I mean, there could be ways to fix it. I mean, Coach Stark. Look, we're going to talk about what Coach Stark said about it. We're going to put it in context. I'm gonna show you that what Coach Stark said in all but like 2 or 3 cases is pretty much true. We got Cody in the chat. We're gonna have Cody actually on. I forgot what we said. We're gonna get Cody on like in a regular rotation, but he's gonna come on I think on Friday this week. So if we get a question like that I can't get into because I'm doing stuff like that, he can help with answering it for sure. He's one of your football friends just like I am. But We're going to talk about, just we'll give a quick second about how the backup offensive line looked. Then we'll start talking about the person, and then we're going to talk about what might need to happen to get this thing fixed in time for Alabama, what could be happening to get this thing fixed in time for Alabama, and then we'll just talk. Yeah, we got a bunch of it. Like we got the tight end alignment stuff. We have the target share data. We have the skill player participation to analyze sort of where these guys are shaping up as far as when they're coming on the field, how the pecking order is shaping out at wide receiver, running back, etc. So there's a lot to get to, and we're going to get to it next.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback focuses on one of the most infamous recruitments of the last decade, a recruitment that ended with what has forever been remembered as Malikmas. Malik Jefferson was a 5-star prospect by rivals when he signed with the Longhorns, finishing as the nation's number 28 overall prospect, the second best prospect in Texas, and the number 1 outside linebacker in the country, according to Rivals.com. While Jefferson is sometimes remembered for never quite emerging as a superstar for the Longhorns, look at who was ranked ahead of him in these 2015 in-state rankings and just below him. While Kyler Murray should have been the number 1 prospect in retrospect, Jefferson was easily the best of the top kids in the Rivals rankings that year. What most people remember about the Jefferson recruitment is that it was a close victory over Texas A&M and seemed to launch the Charlie Strong era into the stratosphere. For most of the recruiting process, Jefferson was leaning heavily to Texas A&M, but when the Aggies went through a defensive coordinator search following the 2014 season, Jefferson and A&M coach Kevin Sumlin had a bit of a disconnect, as Sumlin wasn't very open with his plans for a hire, which Jefferson felt was critical information to any decision that he was going to make. That disconnect opened the door for Strong to step in. When Jefferson made his announcement on December 19th, 6 days from Christmas, Strong was able to completely swing the recruitment into UT's direction.
Jefferson chooses the University of Texas at Austin.
Jefferson was part of a 2015 recruiting class that finished 12th in the nation in the final Rivals.com rankings in what turned out to be Charlie Strong's first full recruiting class as coach of the Longhorns.
Oh, all right. Football with friends. We're back. Oh, it's fun as hell, man. I'm so pleased to be here with you guys on a Wednesday. What my daughter wants us to call a wacky Wednesday. I'm like, what's a wacky Wednesday? She's like, well, that's where people just say wacky things. And I go, well, that sounds like a Wednesday around here. It is a hump day, though, man. So we're getting over the hump. We're getting into a big weekend. We got NFL football tomorrow. I really want to start talking about some of these NFL lines. It's one of my picks for the Circa Millions, the $1,000 buy-in contest up there at Circa in Las Vegas, where of course I'm going to take down the whole thing. All right. All you got to do is hit like 71% of your bets. Okay, so yeah, we'll talk about some of my bets that I'm thinking about for this week. We'll see what you guys think. Also, I think that I'm talking about the matchup tool over at Roster Watch it could be interesting. Maybe give you an idea of some of these players who could go off. Also on Thursday, we'll give out some prize picks for the Thursday night game. All right, you got to get some action on Thursday night, man. We got NFL coming back, dude. We got, what is it, Kansas City, Detroit. Woo! What a big game. What fun that's going to be. And Kansas City's low on wide receivers. I think, Cody, is it true that it looks like they're only going to start like 7 guys? Like, Blake, do you know about this? Are they only going to have like 7 wide receivers active or something?
Yeah, I think so. Well, Kelsey is officially questionable for the game as well, which is going to be interesting. It's a bone bruise in his knee. So
so if people are out there in deep fantasy leagues and they waited on a tight end, would you go run out and pick up like a Noah Gray or something like that? You think that's even? I don't think he can step in and replace Kelsey.
Nobody's reproducing Kelsey production for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah. So the Sky's prop on Prize Picks is 3.5 receptions. That'll be good. And I guess that's kind of true what you're saying, Cody. Sometimes you have these teams where they'll have 7 or 8 receivers, but a lot of those guys are just going to be purely special teams and stuff like that. With the Chiefs, the way that they look right now, feels like, yeah, I mean, they're going to need to get a look at all of them. They're going to want to see Rashee Rice. They're going to want to see Justin Ross. They're going to want to see more of Sky Moore and stuff. So it'll be a whole lot of all these guys. I do like the more on that 3.5 for Sky Moore. More on Moore. We'll talk more about that tomorrow, about Moore and whether we're going more. And and one guy that we're going to talk about right now, of course, is Val Garcia at Val and Real Estate. Can you believe Val Garcia? Can you believe the good work that he does in the community? If you are in the DFW area and you're looking to get into a new home, Val Garcia is one of us. All right, he's a viewer here of the show. He's one of these guys here in the chat. I'm not going to say what his name is. I actually don't know what his name is in chat. I kind of don't want to ask him. But who knows what kind of stuff he might get on here and get on here and say under the guise of a pseudo name. But Val would never do that. He's one of the nicest guys that you'll ever meet. He's a top 25 realtor in all of DFW. And if you're an educator or if you are in the ministry, he will sell your house for free. He will sell your house for free. Okay? For free. $0. Nothing. Most people, nothing. Most people are going to charge you 3%. Everybody's going to charge you 3%. If your house costs $300,000, you sell it for that, it's going to cost you $9,000 for a realtor to come sell it. Put it up on MLS, help you get it ready, don't do all the open houses, help you get it staged, all the rest of that. No. Val does it for free. If you're in the DFW area, you're a teacher, you are in the ministries, ValenRealty.com. Also, if you told him that you heard about him here on Football with Friends, he'll give you half off. So you guys we're talking about savings here in the thousands, the tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, in this economy, please save the money. Save the money and work with a guy that's one of us, one of your friends here on Football with Friends. Val Garcia, Valen Realty, ValenRealty.com. His phone number is 469-647-8729. Available around the clock. He told me he does most of his work between 8 p.m. and midnight. Well, the rest of the world is sleeping. Val Garcia is out here saving the world, saving you money. ValenRealty.com. All right. Hey, more good news besides Valen Realty selling your home for free is that Christian Jones played awesome. He played awesome. Kelvin Banks played. Kelvin Banks was Kelvin Banks like. A couple of hiccups from Kelvin Banks, but he played fine. And what Sark had said about this game, let's talk about the grades quickly for Banks and for Christian Jones. So Banks, 67 snaps. I have him for 1 sack, 1 TFO, 1 run stuff. He had 1 pin block and 3 knockdowns. The dominant pin block. If you guys go look at the play that was after that obvious sack, not the one Cody and them were talking about, the obvious clear sack. The play right after that, where he gets out in the open field on the screen pass and he just killed. Like, I mean, I wanted to call the police earlier today and just report a dead body. It was like, Kelvin Banks was doing Kelvin Banks things. He's going to be so good. He's fine. And the one encouraging thing about all this is that the level of play from those tackles is so all right. So he graded out at a lower than his average. He had a 77.9. So not the best Kelvin Banks game ever. But I mean, if you look at last year, it's a better game than he played versus Baylor, better game than he played versus TCU, better game than he played versus Oklahoma State, better game than he played versus West Virginia, a better game than he played versus Texas Tech. And that's it. He played better games versus everybody else. So he played a middling to kind of not quite Kelvin Banksy game from last year, and he's fine. He had some flashes that looked so much better than last year. And so when he's operating at this level, guys, he's going to be a first-round NFL pick. It's a lock. So I don't know what we even need to say about Kelvin Banks. Even with the allowing disruption 3 times in this game, his snaps per disruption allowed number in the deep dig is still it's not like the 56 it was last year, but it's going to creep back up there. We're on a small sample. He's got a lot of time. It's a long, long season here. But if we just want to look at it just for what can I say for posterity's sake? Does that make sense? Blake, what does it mean when you say something's for posterity's sake? Can you look that up for me?
I'll look it up for you because I don't really know either.
I think that's to say, like, let's do it just to get it on the record. Let's do it for, is that what it means? Let's see here. Come back on it. And Blake, what does it mean? Is this for posterity's sake? Are we doing it for posterity's sake?
You are hoping that years later people will appreciate it. That's what it means.
I am. I'm gonna do that. So I'm going to start saying that a whole lot because there's a lot of stuff that I do. I'm doing it for years later. I hope people appreciate it. Oh, man. Okay. So his snaps per disruption allowed is sitting right now at 22.33. Okay. It's not very good. Let's just look at the historic. Let's look at the historical data here. 22.33. If you were to stick him here in the old historical data, he would be top. No, let's see here. What is this? How many players would be in front of him here? He would have 21 players underneath him if he did this for a whole season. He would have 47 players above him if he did that for an entire season. So he's not going to, right? Couple very young Kelvin Banks, like acts of disruption allowed, but I mean, three knockdowns, one completely dominant pin, and a lot of highly graded snaps. I enjoyed watching Kelvin Banks, and I really enjoyed watching Christian Jones, who was the best offensive lineman for Texas on Saturday. 67 snaps. He only allowed one pressure. He had another dominant pin. He had 2 knockdowns. His deep dig grade was a 78.54. So let's just go to last year. It's a better grade than he had in all but 3 games last season. He had a better grade versus Iowa State. He had a better grade versus OU, and he had a better grade versus UTSA. Wait, was it better than? Yeah, that's all. That's it. He came close versus Kansas, but only 3 better games last year, a top 4 game in Christian Jones's career at Texas. And he's continuing. He looks sharp. He looks good. He looks big. He looks long. He's going to be great. These tackles are good. Now on the interior, it was kind of back to it. We said we're like, let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. We can't fix it. We can talk about it though. And the interesting thing was DJ Campbell goes down. What did the hypothesis been? At least my hypothesis had always been, no matter who goes down, Cam Williams comes in. You got to get Cam Williams in because he's your 6th best player. Once they go back and they watch this tape, they're going to realize that they need before I get to that, what did happen when DJ Campbell went down is Cam Williams did not come in. What they did is they moved Hayden Connor over to right guard. They put Nato in at left guard. And that was how they handled the situation. So clearly, when Sark was telling us, hey, Cole Hudson and DJ Campbell will both play this week and all that was a ruse. Cole Hudson, I guess, was never healthy because we're getting word this week that he's not truly really healthy right now. So if we just anticipate this week, okay, there's probably no DJ Campbell, there's no Cole Hudson. That was going to be an issue anyway, right? On the bright side of things, that's kind of looking now like it's not the monumental loss that I've thought it would be, considering the humbling news that we've sort of come to understand versus Rice, that DJ Campbell is still on the bottom end of his development curve. And look, this isn't curtains for DJ Campbell. I'm not giving up on the guy. I'm not done. I'm not done with DJ Campbell. You're not done either. Okay? Or you can be done. I didn't mean to say that you shouldn't be done either. Look, man, I always say, you do what you want to do. You think what you want to think. You like whatever. But you shouldn't be. He's a great prospect, man. He's shown unbelievable things as a guy who can just road grade and maul people. And there's so much to be said for that. But there are things that he needs to really, really distinct work on that came into such hyper focus in this game. He can't move in all directions the way that he can moving forward. He just can't. And it's disappointing, but guys develop at different rates. And this is why we saw last year what we saw last year with Cole Hudson starting over him the whole season. It's like now the riddle's solved, right? The mystery's been cracked. This is what Kyle Flood sees in practice. Some of it's a little bit concerning. So let's operate on the idea that DJ Campbell won't be good, won't be fully healthy, and Cole Hudson won't be fully healthy. And so you got a hole at the right guard, left guard, whatever you want to call it. Hayden Connor has the ability to play well. I mean, if you just look at last year, Hayden Connor had the third best overall average grade on the whole team. He was the team's third best offensive lineman last season. Now, it is concerning to see that it's hard for you to see, but so on the deep dig on the offensive line grades by week, if you read it on Orangebloods or if you're looking at it here in the maniacal master sheets that I have for it, it's color coded from your best games are blue, right? As far as your scores, and then like your median games it goes to like a white. White is just right in the middle, and then it goes to red as things get bad, right? And it's just funny looking at Hayden Connor's season. It's a kind of a ridiculous looking thing. Starts out blue, it gets a little pink for a minute, then it gets white right through the middle here of West Virginia and OU. Starting at Iowa State, he gets pink, red through the end. He fell off through the end of last year, and he's not getting off to a good foot this year. But we have seen it in the past. We've seen Hayden Connor be good. Now, it's weird because some of the games we've seen him be good, he's been playing tackle and stuff. It's not out of the question for me to think that big guy playing next to Kelvin Banks, playing next to a smart player in Jake Majors, that he'll be able to get it together for the Alabama game. Now, if we were expecting all three of those players to all have this kind of thing where we just put our faith to say it's like, well, I've seen him be better before. I'm hoping he'll be better versus Alabama. That wouldn't be realistic. That's three different outcomes that are completely separate from one another, right? That you can't attach, that you can't correlate. I think if you just take the idea of Hayden Connor, that being one thing, okay? And then you take the idea of Jake Majors and you correlate that with Cam Williams at right guard. Again, Cam Williams. Get in Cam Williams. Get Cam Williams in the game at right guard. Because when you do that, he makes Jake Majors better. Jake Majors is not going to do this. He's not going to have to get himself overextended. He's not going to fall down. He's not going to do any of this stuff. You say, Alex, well, you said DJ Campbell. You know, DJ Campbell was he was going to help. He was going to help. And because DJ Campbell has been good in the run game, and I thought that was going to help Jake Majors. It didn't help Jake Majors, right? But I didn't know that was something that I was just that was something that I was projecting. And do you know why I was projecting it? Because Jake Majors looked better in this spring game when he had Cam Williams next to him at right guard. I figured the same would be true with DJ Campbell. It's not, but I've seen it with my own two eyes. You've seen it. Get in Cam Williams. We talked about it ad nauseum yesterday. Texas isn't in the SEC, but man, this is the SEC. This is why you go get these guys. Get him in there. You can't get NATO back in there. I said about him being, he was good versus the run, but he's still allowed to run stuff on 15 running plays. And versus the pass, I didn't give him a pressure because there were just so many where it was like, oh, is that a pressure or not? Is that he kind of let his slide protection, his hips weren't right for his slide protection, and the guy got by him, and he's kind of getting close to Quinn, but Quinn didn't really seem pressured, and he got the ball off, and it was fine. It didn't wreck the play. It felt like a pressure though. It was and there were like 2 of those on 15 snaps plus the run stuff. So I mean, going back to I refuse to believe that Kyle Flood and that Steve Sarkisian in the number 10 versus number 3 matchup in the whole nation, that everybody's going to be watching. You know, the master versus the apprentice. Milrow, the quarterback stuff with Ewers, we might have been going to Alabama, and Milrow might have been going to Texas, and now look, there are these different schools, and they're both facing off versus one another, and Sark recruited a bunch of these guys, and there's a bunch, there's so many storylines, and it's Texas and it's Alabama, the 2 most recognizable brands in all of college football. And so, all right, okay. So I'm a coach there in Moncrief at Texas, and be like, you know what we do? That interior offensive line performance that we just saw this week, that was probably one of the worst that can be remembered over the last decade. And when NATO came in there at the end and it kind of didn't look ready either, let's go ahead and run that thing back. What do you say? It's like that's an absurd conversation to be having. I've laughed even thinking about it. Get in Cam Williams and see what happens. What do you have to lose? One more thing on the offensive line, and then we'll get to some of this other stuff. We're gonna have to talk about Matthew Stafford's wife on the podcast. I just saw that today. I couldn't believe it. Just the backups. So we've talked about Neto, and this isn't saying that DJ Campbell's bad. I love DJ Campbell. I think that you should think he's going to be a major asset for this program as soon as this season. Right? He's got some things to work on. Sark said it was a collection of errors that were made independent of one another, and we can also take some kind of credence in that, right? It doesn't feel like at least it doesn't feel to me like there was any true systemic problem, except that it does feel like the inside of the interior offensive line is a little bit of a subsystem of its own, especially once you get to Alabama and they start bringing these in to tackle stunt games. That's the way Majors can help. I mean, like if there's something about him, he's been at least okay at identifying that stuff. Hayden Connor's always been good at that stuff. Banks has been good at that stuff. If you have a dude, so the left side is usually fine with that, right? Christian Jones has been playing so much better. I'm telling you, you get a mountain of a man in there. You get Cam Williams is like the Great Wall of China. Just get him in there. Now that I'm thinking about the stunts, it's not just a good idea. You have to do it. But if we just look at the offensive line, let's look at this. So, all right. So there was a pressure that occurred. That was just DJ Campbell. There was one run stuff where it was a systemic failure on the left side on a outside zone concept. There was a TFL allowed that was a failure only on the part of Kelvin Banks. Same thing with the one sack that we talked about earlier. That was only him. There was the DJ Campbell sack that was only on him. Actually, the rest of the line graded well on that. So I think Sark's theory is kind of true here. This is little one-offs. So that's good. That's good. The quarterback hit in the right before half was a systemic failure between Majors and Campbell. The run stuff was actually a well-graded play for everybody except for Hayden Connor. A major systemic failure on the inside zone run stuff in the 10th series. That was 3 guys that just played like that. That was one of the worst snaps of the game. That was one of the worst snaps of the game. That was the whole interior that everybody got pushed back, and you're just like, I'll just give them all the run stuff. Then again in the 10th series, one that was not a systemic failure. It was just Jake Majors. And then in the second to last series that the starters were in, the Hayden Connor stuff, certainly not a systemic failure. We actually have good grades here for the two players who were around him. So that's a good thing, right? That's actually something I need to write that down. Like, these aren't systemic failures. Sark was right. And he seems so confident that he could fix it. So maybe we can kind of take that moving forward, not systemic. Here I am, right? I'm killing two birds with one stone, man. I got to call him to right here after a while. You guys are getting a few of the goods even before the people on Orangebloods are. Even though I know most of you are Orangeblood subs, and certainly I'm going to have to get the charts up and have a whole lot of other information once I've had the time to analyze it. But a lot of this show has just been me saying, like, all right, I just got done with the deep dig. Let's go on the Football with Friends and let's talk about it. The guys who played on with the reserves, we already talked about. We talked about Nato enough. He's going to be fine. Trevor Gooseby played at the left tackle for the final 4 snaps of the game. Connor Robertson at center. Malik Agbo at right guard, which was interesting. He had to change jerseys somehow because Malik Agbo, through the course of the game, was playing the jumbo tight end, the position that Andre Carrick hated playing so much that he actually transferred out of Texas. They have Malik Agbo playing that deal now, but he was wearing number 80, I guess. But then he comes in wearing number 67 there at the very end. Is that allowed, or am I just totally mistaken about how that works? On the game day roster, he was just listed as 80. And then Cam Williams just came in for the 4 snaps. Hopefully we'll see him a lot more than that in this game coming up versus Alabama. We got the rest of the offense to get to. We got the Matthew Stafford stuff. His wife, Kelly Stafford. You'll never believe what she said about these. You Zoomers are going to need to chime in on this. All you guys watching on YouTube. Week 1 lines. We got to talk. I mean, we still have the skill players to talk about. We still have the target share stuff, the tight end alignments, some sort of interesting things there with that as it pertains to Jatavion Sanders versus Gunnar Helm. And of course, sponsors. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, remember, email me, alex@rosterwatch.com. We're going to send business your way. We're going to send users your way. We're going to send customers your way. And we're going to talk more about all this stuff next.
Corey Redding, the linebacker from Galena Park, North Shore High School. USA Today rated him as the best high school defensive player in the nation. That's incredible. Today he verbally committed to play his college ball for Max Brown and the Horns. He's the kind of defensive difference maker the Texans hadn't been able to get in years past, so it appears things are changing.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback focuses on one of the most important recruiting wins in the history of the Texas program. Former 5-star defensive end Corey Redding out of Galena Park, North Shore. To completely understand the significance of Redding's commitment, you have to understand the context surrounding the recruitment. Redding's recruitment occurred just 2 years after another 5-star defensive end, David Warren, bypassed the Longhorns in favor of Florida State. New Texas head coach Mack Brown was trying to put the finishing touches on a number 1 ranked recruiting class, but he had to overcome the stigma that great defensive players didn't go to Texas and that the Longhorns couldn't go into the Houston area and land a truly elite player that didn't play his football in the suburbs. It wasn't going to be easy for the Longhorns, as Redding's top 3 included Colorado and Arizona, with the Wildcats having a big edge with Corey's brother Chris already in the Arizona program, which had his mom wanting both players to play their college careers together. Colorado was actually viewed as a potential party spoiler, but while Redding was on his official visit to Boulder, CU head coach Rick Neuheisel took the Washington job. And that basically eliminated the Buffs. That left Arizona and Texas to duke it out. And when push came to shove, Redding couldn't leave the Lone Star State. Moments before he announced his decision, Redding informed his mom that he was selecting the Longhorns. He told her, quote, "I'm a Texas boy. I want to go to college in Texas, marry a Texas woman, and have Texas babies," while she broke down in tears at the news. Moments later, he told the world the news.
Corey Redding, in 1998-99 season, will be attending the University of Texas.
Redding's commitment sent shockwaves throughout the recruiting landscape as Mack Brown's dominance in recruiting in Texas began that day and rarely slowed down for the next decade and a half. The Longhorns finished with the #1 overall recruiting class in 1999, with the USA Today's Defensive Player of the Year representing the cherry on top of a very tasty sundae.
Spent time with him and myself, and I was like, I want you to put it on my mind the next morning when I wake up. When I woke up, my hands was holding up that hook and sign.
Oh yes, football with friends. It's fun as hell, Blake. I always notice during that thing, whenever Kate says the cherry on top of a very tasty sundae, I can picture Kes just kind of dreaming about it.
He's thinking about it.
It kind of makes me dream about a very tasty sundae.
Hey, and you know, I played that one on purpose, Alex, because tonight on The Outsiders, they will be joined by Corey Redding, special guest.
Oh, there you go.
On The Outsiders.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey man, Bo Edge, Chance Mock, the boys. I've been working on trying to get onto their show, man. I feel bad. Bo keeps texting me, and I'm just like, I've been so busy, having this show and all my other stuff. I was like, man, last week I did all this stuff. I was like, we'll get it figured. Like, let me get into the season a little bit. We'll get it figured out at some point. Plus, what do you need me for? You got Corey Redding. People want to hear from me. Come on, man.
Last week had BJ Johnson, Roy Williams. The week before, it's a lot of fun on the outside.
What are you guys talking about? So do you produce their show too?
Yeah, I do.
Oh gosh. So you produce.
My man Aaron produces the morning shows, and I produce Chad and Catch, your show, and then the night show.
Nice show. They got you working the late shift, Blake. They got you the tough shift.
It's fun. I had the option. I chose to do it because the Outsiders are a lot of fun.
Got to put up with all us dirt balls in the afternoon and in the evening.
I feel I don't know. I relate to you guys.
So we got this guy in the chat, Longhorn. I mean, he says that, what is he saying? Banks, Connor, Majors, Hudson, Jones start this Alabama game. It's happening now. So I don't know. Like, is that what? I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard it's definitely true. The only thing I heard yesterday was the report that DJ Campbell's missing time and Cole Hudson's been banged up, and the issue's a little bit at doubt. And if that's the case, I think that probably that could be. Yeah, I mean, it's probably the way that they might go. I mean, it's like I can't say that that's nonsensical or it's ridiculous. I would like to see Cam Williams. I would like to see that, but he's saying you can't. He's saying these 5 starters did, and we'll get to Tom G's super chat. Thank you, Tom G. But he's saying these 5 starters did well versus Bama. You're guessing on Cam Williams. Well, I mean a little bit, and did they do? Let me just go look and see. Let me go check their grades versus Bama.
Pull them up. You got the data.
So versus Bama, I gotta go to 2022. Yeah, I mean it was okay. The worst of them, I mean, yeah, Cole Hudson played reasonably in that game. It was kind of like a median game for him. He was right at his season. His season average was just above that level of acceptability, that 75 that we talk about. Which, I mean, for a true freshman, you come in at Texas, you play at that level. It's fine. I mean, you play versus Bama at that level. I think that's fine. Jake Majors played at. He had like a 75 point. Oh, he had exactly a 75 in this game. Hayden Connor played Christian Jones played his worst game of the season. No, his second to worst game of the season versus them. Oddly enough, Christian Jones' 2 worst games of the season last year were his first and his second game. Isn't that wild? He got
better.
It's like the season started. We're like, same old Christian Jones, right? I don't remember that being the narrative. But I guess that was it.
What was Banks' grade against Will Anderson and crew?
Good, 79.39. Banks is so awesome, dude.
In his second game.
I want to look and see like what as far as the disruption they allowed during that one. So, I don't. These are things I can't remember off the top of my head. So, the Alabama offensive line, there was a illegal blind. Do you remember this? That the game started on the second play of the game that Hayden Connor got called for an illegal blindside block. That's not a usual one.
I forgot about that.
Let's see. Okay, so Kelvin Banks in that game. allowed two run stuffs in the whole game. He played 66 snaps. What a G. Hayden Connor.
Awesome.
Hayden Connor. Whew. Can this be right? I guess Hayden Connor didn't. Did I say that? What was his grade in this game? Did his disruption get knocked out? Hold on. Let me go back and look. I'm not sure if this is good radio or not, but I don't care. I'm fascinated. But now that this guy's
It's too interesting.
grades by week. Hayden Connor, I mean, he did have a 77.42. I said it was one of his worst grades. It wasn't a terrible grade. Hayden Connor is. I'm not showing him with any disruption allowed in that game. So that's good. So I guess what he's saying so far is right. That group of 5 did play well. So hold on, but let's look through the rest of them. Jake Majors, because you can't just say the guy Longhorn or whatever in the chat. You can't just say just because they came close to winning that they played well. Jake Majors didn't play well. He allowed a TFL, 2 run stuffs, and a quarterback hit. 54 Cole Hudson. No, I mean, 66 snaps. It's not terrible. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's about a little worse than baseline historically. When we talk about that sort of super middling area of like where Kelvin Banks is right now, allowing like what disruption once every 22 point something snaps. That's exactly what he allowed in this one. 1 run stuff, 1 pressure, 1 quarterback hit, and then Christian Jones in that game allowed 1 pressure, 1 hit, and created 1 dominant pin block. So, hey, this is the chat, man. I'm telling you, dude. This is why I football with friends. Dude, the chat comes in. It's like, that's a good point. That's a good point. Those 5 starters last year, they did well. I hope that Cole Hudson's not compromised, and I hope that Jake Majors gets it figured out that he can't keep getting overextended.
Mm-hmm.
We need Hayden Connor to reverse the cycle. Just woo, flip it on his head. Get it like it started last year. What did I say in the Iowa State game? Just stop it. Just in the cycle. Okay, Tom G in chat says, with interior OL issues, does this have an impact on who gets the majority of RB snaps? Because we'll need somebody who can step up and protect the quarterback. Which RB would that be? It's a good question.
It is a good question. You would think like the more senior running backs would be better at pass block just with years in the system and practice reps. But I mean, so I would assume Brooks, but I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Well, I don't. I'm trying to think about the game. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be Blue. Because you remember, like it wouldn't be Blue.
No, it's not Blue.
It's not. I just thought Baxter could be the best. He could be the best pass protector in the world, and of course, yes, dude. It's Brooks. It's Brooks. The only question I had was Keelan Robinson's actually kind of okay at that too. I don't know whether or not I don't know whether or not he could stand up to it. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think it has to be. I honestly think it would be Brooks or it would be Keelan Robinson. Weirdly, it would be one of those guys, but Brooks most certainly would be my favorite to do it. That's a good question, Tom G.
We'll get a good look at it versus Alabama because that's going to be a bigger test than Rice.
I do think if we're just talking from a pure if they can just generate a little bit of movement up front. Cody's asking if I grade the RB's pass blocking too. No, I don't grade it. I maybe should have started doing that, but 13 years ago when I started this, I'm not I never played running back. I never had family that coached running backs, and it was just nothing I inherently understood. There are probably still some things about the running back protections and things like that I would, I don't feel. If I'm going to be putting out these grades and stuff, I need to know exactly what I'm talking about. And I feel like as far as running backs, I don't know all of their exact rules. But yeah, I mean, I think Brooks for sure.
Paul
And
says you're slacking. It's not like you went through and graded every single snap of the first game and every game going back 13 years.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just like there are always things that I want to add as I get smart. Like if I'm still doing this in the spring, we're gonna have shows where we don't have the football games to talk about and stuff, and we're just gonna come and we're just gonna geek out about what I learned at like this coaching clinic. Like I go to coaching clinics and I do stuff like this, and so there are certainly things that I learn and things that I pick up, and I love learning about football. This is my job. It's my career. This is what I love. It's like, this is what I do. Right. And, so we'll have shows where we talk about all that stuff. There's always things that I want to add, but the reason you can't is because the deep dig is what it is. It's just, it is what it is. And if you add stuff, then you have nothing to, you don't, I'd have to make the templates would be different, and I can't go through and I can't compare stuff historically. It's like I just wouldn't know how to do it. So that's why I don't grade the offensive line pass blocking. But I can tell you I can't tell you that Roschon Johnson never let a dude by him. We'll talk about it. Like, if he was available for this game, I think I know what the answer would be for sure. That's a guy who, like, you can make highlight tapes of what a good pass protector he was. If you remember some of the stuff he was such a good player. I can't wait to see him play this weekend. Hoff from our league.
Yeah, Hoff has been in the chat. I got one save from earlier too.
How about Anwar getting jealous during last night about me complimenting you and Alex? Anwar's getting, dude. Ketch said he sent me the Ketch. I feel bad. So you guys had a Zoom meeting?
Yeah,
or something?
we were hanging out on Zoom.
I tried to find it. Ketch texted me. He said, "Hey, I sent you a Zoom invite in Slack." I texted him back. I go, "There's no Zoom invite in Slack, man. You probably."
We thought y'all were scheming. We're like, "Oh, none of the roster watch guys are in here. They're up to something." And then y'all started making picks all over the place. We're like, "Oh man, they're getting us."
No, man. I do. You got to go a little bit wild in that league when you're going against all these killers and you're going against all your.
That's why I made the power move to, and Roschon Johnson was not gonna last to the 9th. I knew that listening to the Zoom call, and I was like, I'm just going to take him in the 8th. Screw it. Why not? I want him.
Hoff saying he needs to get on the Prize Picks show. You're welcome anytime, brother. We'll be talking Prize Picks on Thursday and Friday, so just text me, man.
Yeah, bring him on.
We will definitely get you on. Movies? You want to talk about movies, or maybe you just want to do one more thing about we want to talk about the.
There were a couple of chats about movies.
Okay.
We'll do those real quick, and then we'll move on from movies, but. Paul said earlier, bad words, interstellar chef, law-abiding citizen.
I've never even heard of a few of those.
I haven't heard of law-abiding citizen.
So here's the thing about this too. Like, people, I think let's just, we can't ban Blake Winfrey from the chat because he's such a good member of the community. But anybody that says do you like these Marvel movies?
I don't, but I will say The Dark Knight is probably the best of all of them.
Is that one of them? What is that?
That's the
Batman?
Christopher Nolan Batman with Heath Ledger Joker from 2008.
Oh, that one.
That one was.
Well, I mean, I've never seen that one, but that one at least seems like it.
I don't put that one in the same category as most.
And look, I'm no movie buff. I don't watch movies. I'll wait till the very end to tell you. Let me see if I
Shawshank Redemption was gonna be one of mine. That's a good one. I could rewatch that all the time.
I have a pretty good. So someone already took Shawshank. Well, that should be one. Green Mile and all these movies that come from the Stephen King books that aren't necessarily like horror, but are the kind of still real creepy. Green Mile, Shawshank, these kinds of they come from the short stories. Those are always really good. We'll go quickly and just talk about the stuff with the target shares, and I just kind of thought it was interesting in the fact that Xavier Worthy has almost a 30% target share. It's just like that's unheard of unless you're talking like how many attempts did I already put it in. So I forgot what it was. I was just buzzing through trying to get these. How many attempts did Quinn even have? What was it, like 35, 36? I should probably know. I'm not in the sheet right now, but to I mean, to have a 30% target share on anything close to, approaching like the only time I can think about it from last year. What?
30 attempts, 19 for 30.
Okay. Oh, but there's also the Malik Murphy passes. How many
Malik Murphy was 3 for 5. Yeah.
So was it 35 total?
Yes, 35 total. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm thinking about these games last year whenever like everybody's saying like, oh, Drake London, he had a 33% target share. And I'm like, well, how many attempts did Marcus Mariota have? And they're like 21, it's like, oh, so you're telling me he had 7 targets. It's like, to get up to like nearly, it's a 29% share, but to get up that high, when you're talking about 35 attempts and you didn't even play for the last few series, it's just absurd. He's going to be a target monster. I do think that AD Mitchell is going to pop off. And we talked about yesterday about how I really, really liked the way that he operated at the top of his routes. When I kept watching him today, I just kept thinking slinky. He's very slinky. He's slinky in this. Do you know who AD Mitchell reminds me of?
Who?
AJ Green. Slinky, longer, slender. Can be a contested catch guy, but just at the top of his routes, man. The way he can manipulate, the way that he can separate using the length of his body and stuff. He was getting open at times whenever he wasn't even one of the primary reads, and you're just like, oh man, dude, if that ball could have gone to AD, we're talking about like there are going to be games where he pops out, but the target shares are very much, very very much skewed towards Xavier Worthy, and this we're going to keep on through the course of the season, so we'll know who's kind of goes up and down and stuff like that. And listen, what Chase Dunnigan just said, he said that he said something that we're going to talk about in just one quick minute because he's exactly right. Xavier Worthy, so 29% target share. AD Mitchell and Jatavion Sanders are each at 17.14, so that's just a chasm of difference. Whittington, 11.43. Jonathan Brooks, 8.57. Jonte Cook, 8.57. Nair, 5.71. Keelan Robinson, 2.86. So I think AD Mitchell, I think probably Worthy is like, it's going to have to come down from 29. And I think what's going to happen with that is that AD Mitchell will rise. I'm not sure that JT Sanders is going to get much higher than a 17 to 19% target share. Whittington probably will rise from there at 11.43%. But it's got to come from somewhere. And you don't want to take targets away from Worthy. He is a Lamborghini, dude. And I mean, he is. He's an absolute Ferrari. All right. So what Chase Dunnigan's saying is about AD Mitchell's great at receiving, but his blocking absolutely. He doesn't love to block.
It was bad. He doesn't care.
Yeah. He doesn't love to block. He's not the best open field blocker, and he also caused a was that on the short yardage play whenever he allowed the tackle for a loss and they didn't get it on 4th down?
That's the one I'm thinking of, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
not great.
It's crazy, man, because I'm trying to think, dude. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. What's the wide receivers coach name? Is it Chris Jackson now?
Yeah.
Why did I want to keep saying Jason Washington? I guess he was the old coach.
Jason Washington.
Was he under Herman? Why on earth would I keep thinking of him?
Chris Jackson.
Regardless, it doesn't matter. It's Chris Jackson.
It's Chris Jackson.
There was one of these wide receiver coaches that I'll go and I'll watch some of their AD Mitchell 4 TD catches and all 4. Yeah,
that's what I said on the show the other day.
He's scored a touchdown in every game since he's a freshman. Now he's been hurt a bunch, right? So we're only talking 7 straight games, but last 7 games he's scored a touchdown. He's a touchdown scorer. He's a G, man. He's a G. Like he's gonna be a good player. I think that the target share has to come up. But Chris Jackson. Now I had just heard from one of these coaches that I go and visit during the off season that run these, there's all these personal trainer like coaches that, especially for the wide receivers and the corners, and these guys are out of Dallas. Some of them are out of Waco, but a ton out of Dallas, a ton of them out of Houston. and these players go to work with them, and they get the opportunity to not only get the personal training from the coaches, but also these personal trainer coaches. Now, if you ask college coaches about them, and you ask like the college recruiting directors and stuff about them, they'll have mixed feelings because they'll say sometimes these guys listen more to their personal coaches and they'll tell them this stuff that's generally applicable to the wide receiver position, but not necessarily what I'm looking for you to do, right? Mm-hmm. On the flip side of that coin, these guys will bring a grip of players to camps. They'll bring all their guys. Like it's be super easy for them. Call up old so-and-so. I'm not going to talk about their names or anything here, but call up old so-and-so. You tell them you're having an elite camp. Tell him to bring some of his best guys, keep a good relationship with them. You know, they'll bring a whole van load of kids to your camp. They will talk to their kids about coming to your school if they appreciate you as a wide receivers coach. They will. So it's a sort of a love-hate relationship that they have with these guys. And I was taught they also get the opportunity. That's the cool thing for me is that they work with really good players. And so they often go on to the NFL, right? And then what happens when they come back home for off season? Well, the NFL players still work with these guys. And that's the business model with a lot of them, right? It's like some of these guys, they come from less fortunate families and might not have money to pay for expensive after school training with a private coach or a private trainer. And there's just kind of a implicit, or is that the word, inherent? There's just an unspoken understanding. It's like, hey man, I got you. Whenever you get to the NFL, you come, you'll train with me, you'll pay your full rate, and that'll in turn work as an incentive to get some other younger players down here who might come from more fortunate families of greater means, and they'll pay the rate for their high school stuff. And in doing so, you get to help out kids in your community by coming back and playing football with them and teaching them some stuff. And I'll be making some money because I'll have an NFL player here at my camp, and it's all good. And then you'll be paying me to come train with me then because you're going to make all the money in the world. You're going to be a millionaire, right? So these guys, they have a good thing going on, and they talk to media, and they like to invite you out to camp, and they talk to coaches and stuff. And I remember one of them I was talking to was like, hey man, you can't play for Chris Jackson if you don't block. You're not going to get on the field if you don't block. And he was saying this specifically in the context of Jonte Cook. He was wondering if Jonte Cook was going to be a guy that was going to be able to pick up his blocking during the spring, because he said, Jonte, man, that's something. He's flashy as hell, but I'm not sure how much he's going to love. I'm not sure how much he's going to love blocking, like all this stuff.
He's not a Roshan Johnson, Jordan Whittington.
Yeah, I don't think that there's been an issue much with Jonte, but I think after one game we could tell you that whole thing about you're not getting on the field if you're not good at blocking. I think A.D. Mitchell's kind of just throwing that whole narrative out the window, man. He's got some work. But man, whenever he's so good elsewhere, it's like
he's scoring touchdowns, man.
I mean, how good you are at blocking on your stock blocks and stuff like that and all that becomes a tiebreaker whenever things are close. And the final thing that I'll say about this Texas game, there is nothing close. There's nothing close between number 5, number 13, and number 1. There was nobody else that even came in until like they were getting very close to the second half, and that was only after Worthy had just he runs a long route. He comes out for a play, comes right back in. It's like it's those three. We'll talk tomorrow about kind of how things are stacking up behind them, because we still have the skill guys to talk about. We still have the quarterbacks, the running. I thought we were going to get to talk about Stafford. I thought we were going to talk about but movies. All right, I don't have a top because Shawshank was going to be one of my top 3.
Shawshank.
But I think the other two are just so obvious, right? They are. You give yours first. I want to make sure that mine aren't too.
I was going to say, Shawshank was going to be number 1 for me. I'll also say a couple of Tarantino movies, Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained. I thought were badass movies. I'll put those up there.
I have a top 4 now that you mentioned Tarantino, because Pulp Fiction's in there too.
Pulp Fiction, yeah. Of course.
And then the other two are just super easy. It is, and these are the only correct answers. Forrest Gump. Nobody said Forrest Gump.
It's a good one.
Here's the thing about Forrest Gump. What's her? Janie, the girl in the movie. Janie, is that her name?
I think so. Yeah.
She's so bad. She's the worst. She's like an evil character in that movie. For real. People are just like,
Jenny,
just think that she's the Jenny. People just think that she is like his love interest. She is terrible. I mean, I'm not even sure. Like, we won't even get into it, but I think he might want to get himself checked out after being too close up to her. And then the other one, of course, Three Amigos. Who can beat Three Amigos?
Okay, classic.
You've seen Three Amigos, haven't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's how we're going to.
Hey, guys, we are going to get to Stafford at some point.
Oh yeah. Have you heard of it? Like his wife? This clip went viral. We're gonna have to talk about it, but we're not gonna do it today. So for Blake, I'm Alex. It's been Football with Friends.